Welcome to Music Notation Basics, Topic 8. This is a huge one. I know I say that a lot about different topics, but this one is amazingly big and important. Topic 8 is all on modes. What's a mode? A mode is a type of scale. That's all. It's a musical scale. And we're going to be looking at modes that have been around for a long, long time. I don't even know when exactly they started, but we're talking like in the time of the Greeks. And we're going to be looking at modes, again, in terms of C, specifically C major. So one nice thing about Music Notation Basics as a subject here is that we try to relate everything to C to start with, just to give some continuity. I think if you change too many things at once, it's hard to learn. So we're going to keep C as our setting, and we're doing it also because you're going to see that a lot. A lot of people do that when describing music. So anyway, C major. We refer to modes as having a parent scale or a parent key. So our parent key and our parent scale is the key of C, and the parent scale is the C major scale. So again, to review here, scale steps, that is scale degrees, are numbered from 1 to 8. So we've got C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6, B is 7, and high C up here is 8. These are called degrees, and sometimes they're written like this in analysis. You put the 1, and then you put a little caret on top. You write 2, and again you put a little caret on top. If I were to draw a big 2 and a big caret, the caret would look like that, okay? That's like in formal music theory analysis. That's a way that theorists notate scale the numbers when using and referring to scale degrees, which simply outline exactly what tone in the scale you're on, going from 1 all the way up to 8, sometimes beyond, right? Because we learned in the last topic when looking at chords that you can have a ninth, and we stopped at ninths. Chords actually go on to include 11ths and 13s and all sorts of things, but for just an introduction we stopped at 9. So let me clear all of this and jump to what diatonic chords are. So diatonic, these mean that they come all from one set of tones, and the set of tones is the tones from C major. So all of these notes and all of these chords are generated from and only using notes of the C major scale. If this feels like a lot, just take a deep breath and just do one little bit at a time, okay? You'll get the hang of it. If you keep it nice and easy. So diatonic chords. Chords can be formed using notes from the parent scale. So let's look at, first of all, the 1 chord. Notice that these chords are labeled using Roman numerals. And notice that that's different than the scale steps, the scale degrees, which are labeled using just standard numerals. Got it? Okay. So if we look at the 1 chord, which is a capital 1 because it's a major chord, what we do to get these notes, and if you're already getting the hang of music notation, then you know that what these notes are probably C, E, G, B, and those notes C, E, G, B stem from just stacking the first note, the third note, the fifth note, and 7th note. Let me play the scale again. And if we stack 1, 3, 5, 7, we get what's known as the 1 chord. We can do that stacking trick on every single note in the scale. So the 1 chord is based on starting with 1 and stacking from 1, going up every other note. The 2 chord, we just start on the 2, right here. We start stacking. So we start with D. We stack F, A, and C above that. So here we go. We start with D. Then we do F, and then A, and then C. And when we play those notes together, D, F, A, C, we end up playing a D minor 7 chord, right? And there they are, all stacked. So, based on the 3, you're going to stack 3, 5, 7. Uh-oh, we need one more. So we ran into this problem when creating chords in the last lesson. What we do is we just add the next note, the 9th, and now we have the full chord. 3, 5, 7, 9. And it sounds like this. So far, the 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord. These keep going up. You can see, if you look at all of these chords, the very bottom note we circle the bottom note of each one. We can see that it just forms the major scale. Come here to the 4 chord, circle the bottom note. That's an F. Bottom note here is a G. Bottom note here is an A. Bottom note here is a B. Now we didn't need to play this one at all. This should look familiar. It's a repeat of 1. Just like the note C down here is repeated up at the top. So it's the same chord. The notes where they're written are different because now they're up high. But when we're dealing with chord symbols and chords in general, chords don't really know octaves. They can be placed anywhere. So you can play a chord like here, or here, or here. It won't matter. It's all 3 of those that I just played. Those are all C major 7 chords. One was just low, one was in the middle, and one was up high. Just C major again. So, what about all of these, like the first one being major 7, the second one being minor 7, the third one being minor 7, then major 7, then dominant 7, then minor 7, then half diminished 7, remember half diminished? With the circle with the line going through it, and then the last one being major 7. What's up with all of that? This gets tricky, and to really fully understand the nomenclature, the names for all of these things, you have to make sure that you can actually really familiarize yourself with not just the C major scale, but also the D major scale, the E major scale, the F major scale, the G major scale, the A major scale, the B major scale. Because to form D minor 7, if you think back again to just the tail end of the last lesson, you need to know that F originally is F sharp, C is originally C sharp. You lower those to become F natural and C natural, and that's how you get, or at least how you label it. How you get or generate each one in this context is that much easier process, where we just build the C, starting with C and going every other note. Same with D, same with E. When we get to F, we start on F, and we again just build 4, 6, 8. And do you know what comes after 8? Just go every other note. Once you reach the octave, remember the scale just starts over. So the next note up would be E. You see why that is? It's E. We could call it number 10, but we're not going to. Don't think of it as number 10. Think of it as the third, as number 3. All right? It's up here. But remember, once you're dealing with the chord, octaves don't matter. So I'm going to play each chord starting with C, moving on up. Here we go. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. All of these chords are diatonic chords because they all stem from C major. Now that's a little introduction to modes, because each of these chords implies a different mode within the key of C. Below, on the third line here, we start what is a complete mode chart in the key of C major. All right, that runs from here all the way down to here. And what we see is the scale, C major scale for line 1. Line 2, it's the notes of the C major scale, but this time it's starting on D. Line 3, it's the notes of the C major scale, but starting on E. So on the first one here, we start on C, and we end on C. It sounds like this. The next one, we start on D, and we end on D. Sounds like this. So, start on D, end on D. We do that for each one. Wherever we start, that's where we end, and we're always just starting one note up higher on the C major scale. So if you look at these notes, actually, from here straight down, the first of each actually ends up forming a major scale also. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. The last one way down here we could call C. And that would be a complete major scale, bottom to top. Each of these scales includes the original chord, so like the 1 chord here corresponds with this scale. You can see the notes from that chord. Here's the C, then the E, then the G. It's pretty clear, right? So the circled notes form basic chord triad associated with each mode, right? If we look at the 2 chord, we can see, starting with D here on the second line, D, then F, and then A, right? You can do the same thing with each of them. We're not going to, just for a second here. We're going to go back to 1 and look at what these are called. So this first mode is something that you're not really going to use much at all. It's called Ionian. Here's the word, Ionian. But honestly, what does this sound like? If a mode is a type of scale, that sure as anything sounds like the major scale. So, Ionian basically is the major scale. So we're like almost never going to call it Ionian, but there it is, just for you to know. It's also called Ionian. There's a little asterisk next to major scale here. That's because the asterisk is going to show up in every single mode, and it's pointing out the identifying characteristic of each mode. So the identifying characteristic of mode number 1, the Ionian mode, is, what do you know? It sounds like the major scale. Let's move on to number 2. This one is used a ton in jazz. This one is called the Dorian Mode, and this is all the notes of the C major scale, but starting on 2 instead of on 1. So again, the sound of it is this. The chord is a D minor chord. Okay. And the identifying characteristic of this is not just that it's minor, but it's right here, this note. This is a natural 6. Let's hear that. D minor, if we were doing just a natural minor, it would sound like this. You hear that? But a Dorian minor has a natural 6 instead of a flat 6, so it sounds like this. Sometimes people call it a raised 6 even. So and that's a defining characteristic of the Dorian mode. We're going to be looking more deeply at all of the types of minor scales, so you'll get to understand this better, but know that that's just the defining characteristic. In terms of tunes, probably the most famous Dorian tune is So What, with that bass line. And up at the top, so what? That's that 6 going to 5. 6 going to 5. The next up is Phrygian. Now, Phrygian with a P, P-H-R-Y-G-I-A-N, is also minor. Minor is always easy to spot because you just have to look at the middle note, the third note of the scale. Keeping in mind what your major scale was, E major normally has a G sharp, so it's lowered, and that's what makes it minor. Those are the 3 notes of E minor. That's E, G, B. Right here. 1, 3, 5. Minor is not the defining characteristic of Phrygian, nor is it the defining characteristic of Dorian. It is something that helps you rule out that they are Ionian. You know, the major scale, of course, because they both sound minor. But for Dorian, it's the raised 6. For Phrygian, it's the lowered 2nd. Some people call that Spanish minor or Phrygian minor, so if you want to think of it like that, fine. But the flat 2 is pretty cool here. It's called a flat 2 because if this were in major or in minor and it was just like your basic minor scale, like E natural minor, it would sound like this for the first 5 notes. But here we have, and that second version was with the flat 2, which is the F natural here. It may be confusing to think of E Phrygian like this, but if I said, hey, go up to your C major scale and start on E, and just go from E, and when you get to the top, just add in an extra D and E that come from the bottom of your major scale, and go from the first E up to this E, then I bet you could do it really easily. And guess what? It's the exact same thing. So that's all we're doing down here. We're just reordering the notes in the C major scale, and it's cool because you end up with a different sound for each one. So let's start back with 1. 1 sounds like this. 2 sounds like this. 3 sounds like this. If you're wondering what I'm doing with my hands, what I'm doing is on the keyboard here, with my right hand I'm playing the scale. And with my left hand, an octave below, I'm just playing the circled notes, which form a basic chord. So, and then that was C major with the C major scale, then D minor chord with the D Dorian minor scale, then E minor chord in my left hand with the E Phrygian minor scale. Okay. Next up is Lydian. Lydian is super close to the major scale. If this were the F major scale, it would have a B flat in it. The F major scale sounds like this. It does not have a B flat in it because it's a mode from the C major scale. And C major does not have any flats or sharps, so we know it's just a B natural and it's going to sound like this. Different. Here's major. Here is Phrygian. It's very subtle. Next up is Mixolydian. You're going to use Mixolydian a lot. Starts on 5. And if you look at what the G major scale would have been, it would have had a G sharp in it. We take out that G sharp, because again, the C major doesn't have any sharps or flats. We're left with an F natural, and that's the defining characteristic of Mixolydian, is that it has a lowered 7th. Sounds like this. If I just play from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I kind of stop on that 7, and then come back down, it sounds very, very Mixolydian-like. Let's replace that with a F sharp to make it major. Now let's put the F natural back in place. There are only 2 more. The next one is Aeolian. This is another form of minor. This middle note defines it as minor, because it's originally it would be A major would have in it a C sharp. So here it's a C natural, lowered 3rd, a flat 3, and we get defining characteristic is the flat 6. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Compare that to Dorian. Dorian sounds like this. Aeolian sounds like this. That reminds me of some movie music or something, you know. It also reminds me of natural minor, because the natural minor scale is exactly the same as Aeolian. The flat 6, flat 7, and a flat 3. If you're not familiar with your minor scales entirely yet, this may be a step ahead, but look, either way, there's a whole other presentation on all types of minor scales, so you'll get the hang of it, definitely. The last one, the 7, is called Locrian, and it goes like this. That's a weird one. It's circled just the 1, the 3, and the 5 here. And here, just those notes. Let's hear them again. This top note, this 5, the F natural, that's the defining characteristic of Locrian. It's the only mode of all of these modes that has a flat 5 for the sound for that top note. If I played that right now, that's a diminished chord. To understand B diminished, you do have to take a minute and think of what your B major scale is, which is a little hard, but it's worth doing. And then you have to know that to make it diminished, you have to flat the 3 and flat the 5. So originally, the B major chord would be B, D sharp, F sharp. If we flat just the 3 and it becomes B, D, F sharp, that's minor. If we flat the 3 and the 5, it becomes what we have here for the 3 circled notes. B, D, F, and that's diminished. Let's hear those again. Major, minor, diminished. You're going to notice, though, there are 2 asterisks. There's the one by the flat 5 here, and also the one by the flat 2. Now, the flat 2 is a characteristic of Phrygian and Locrian. If we didn't have a flat 2 here, we would have this. So with the flat 2, it becomes... whole thing again. Locrian is also known as the one right under C major. So, because if we go up one more, we get to C major. So first Locrian, and then up 1, down. That was back to Locrian, and now back up to major. Because major, of course, is just up from B, up 1 note to C. So these are all 7 modes. You probably are, one, either totally overwhelmed by all of this stuff, and if you are, that's okay. Or you may be already asking a bunch of questions. Let me see if I can try to answer some of them. One thing you might be asking is, why are these chords, why is this called a C major 7 and this is just called a C? Why is this a D minor 7, this called a D minor? Why is this called a B half diminished 7, then down here it's just called a diminished, right? So basically the overarching question is, why are the chords here on this line presented as 7th chords, where you have 4 notes per chord? And then down here, they're presented as triads, only looking at 3 notes per chord, right? The circled notes for each line. So why for the diatonic chords, and then why only triads for the complete mode chart? And that was an arbitrary decision I made. I vacillated. I could have gone either way. For instance, I could have circled this, and then this. And then it would have been a perfect match with this chord. I could have done that for each one and labeled, this is a C major 7, and then this is a D minor 7, this is an E minor 7. I chose not to, just to show you that you have 2 options in terms of thinking about chords. One is to think of 7th chords, where it's called a 7th chord, by the way, because there's the 7th in each one of these, which is the top note of that chord each time, all the way. Every one of these has 7. G7, A minor 7, B half diminished 7, C major 7 again. But at the same time, you don't need that 7th to define the chord. So coming back to D minor, D, F, A defines that mode just fine. It sounds complete. And above that we can run But if you wanted to put together a mode chart, or you saw another mode chart that, for instance, down here had B half diminished 7, and then this note was also circled, in addition to the B, the D, and the F, that would be fine. So let's look at page 2. So this, by the way, page 1 does not tell you anything about why modes matter. And that's the title of this whole couple pages. Let's look at page 2 and see if we can get down to the bottom of this. Let's read what this says. Music compositions often remain in one parent key. So in this whole example, C major is that parent key. We know that. It's redundant. We already talked about that here at the beginning. Melodically, this parent key includes only one diatonic parent scale, the C major scale. It does include a bunch of other diatonic scales, right? If these are diatonic chords, then all of these are diatonic scales. However, there's only one parent scale, and that's the one of the key, the parent key. So in this case, again, it's this first line, C major. 3 notes of this parent scale, C, E, G, are consonant with the parent key and are already at a point of resolution. These consonant notes are considered to be at home. This is not a technical term, but it is a term that a lot of musicians use. 4 notes of the parent scale, D, F, A, B, are dissonant with the parent key and need resolution. These dissonant notes are considered to be away. Okay, so C, E, G are consonant, and they're already resolved. So they're at peace. Those are home notes. D, F, A, B are away notes, and they are dissonant with the parent key, and they need resolution. Dissonance is clash. It needs resolution. Keyword is need, okay? It needs it. These notes are alive. They need things. Let's look at this new example of the C major scale, which is the parent scale. Check this out. I will circle the home notes, C, E, and G. I'll circle this one even though it's not necessary. It's redundant because we already have C. So anyway, here are the notes. Again. All of the other notes are dissonant. They are away. If I play this chord, my C major chord, my parent key, my parent chord, and I play an E, you're totally fine. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It's done. Same with G. Same with C. But if I play an F, it's dissonant. You hear that? Of course you hear that. It clashes. And it needs to resolve. So let's look at all of these resolution points. Scale tendencies. This is a really cool phrase. Scale tendencies. This is what each note has a tendency to want to do within the key. 2, which is D, has a tendency to resolve down to 1, moving from away to home, because D is away, C is home. So if it starts off like this, then it resolves. That was D, C, or 2, 1, away, home. Next, 4 resolves to 3. That's its tendency. If we're on 4, we move down to 3. Next, 6 resolves to 5. And the last one, 7 resolves up. Right, we're on B. B, C, away, home, 7, 1. What would happen if we tried to resolve down? We go like this. 7, 6, and 6 would still be clashing, it would still be dissonant. So we could do this. We could go 7, 6, 5. Some melodies do that. What we end up with and this is, we're getting to why modes matter. What we end up with modes is that we've got away notes, we got dissonant notes, and we got consonant notes, home notes. And for the dissonant notes, we need chords that match them. So all of these different chords, the 1, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, can go into either a home category or an away category. And, well, let's read this, and then we're going to get to the big reveal. So, this parent key includes chords derived from modes within the key. You know, like we've just been over. So if C major is our parent key, then D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished are all derived from modes within the key. So the mode is the full scale, and then we made each chord by circling the first, the third, and the fifth note and playing those together, right? Or the 1, 3, 5, 7. So that's that. Next, these chords and modes are relative to the parent chord C major, are either consonant or dissonant. So they're either home or away. You might think the way to do that is just, if you build a chord on C, that means that's home. Build it on D, that means that's away. Build it on E, that means that's home. Build it on F, that's away. But you run into a bit of a problem doing that, and we'll kind of address what's going on here. So let's come down here. To determine whether each mode should be placed in the home or away column, follow these 4 steps. Number 1. Note that the basic chord triad of the parent chord, which is the 1, the C major, includes C, E, G. I think we've noted that enough. Number 2. Examine the basic chord triad of each mode. So, like, we could examine D minor, D, F, and A as our notes. Number 3. If 2 chord tones match the parent chord, that mode can be placed in the home column. Number 4. If only 1 chord tone matches the parent chord, that mode is placed in the away column. So let's try D. If we look at D minor, we know it's D, F, A. So do they match? That's O for 3. None of them match the home. That should probably be number 5 here. If none match, then it goes in the away column. But anyway, D minor is definitely away because nothing matches. Let's try E minor. I think this one follows the rules exactly. So we have E, G, B as our notes. And what are the rules? If 2 chord tones match the parent chord, then that mode can be placed in the home column. So E, G are both part of the parent chord. Right? C, E, G was the parent chord. So E, G, that's a perfect match. And that's why it's in the home column. C, of course, is in the home column because it is home. But E minor is also considered home. And now let's try A minor. Let's see, A minor. According to this final chart, it is part of the home column. Why is that? Does it have two notes? Let's see, the notes are A, C, and E. Yep, sure enough, two notes are C and E. And those match the parent chord, so good. Let's put it in the home column. Let's finish the aways here. F. So F includes F, A, and C. And F and A are both away notes, right? Here are my away notes, D, F, A, B. So F and A are both away notes. So that's going to be in the away column. All right, next up is G. G, B, D. The only home note is G. The other two are away, so that's in the away column. The last one is B diminished. And all of these notes are different than the home, so it's definitely in the away column. That's C. That's E. That is A. Wow, that makes a nice chord progression. Now the home notes, or the away notes, away chords. D minor, F, G, B, and back to home. That forms a nice tune, just playing them in this order. You're going to see in future lessons that mixing these sets of chords with these sets of chords gives you a ton of different options, and most music is in chord progressions and in melodies is either dealing with some form of home moving to away, and then some form of away moving back to home. This is a little bit abstract now, but you'll get the hang of it. The main thing is, see if you can really familiarize yourself in any key, any major key you're in, with the 1 chord relating to the 3 chord and the 6 chord, and then on the away side combining the 2 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, and the 7 chord. A mode chart like this should not just be super static. Okay, you want to be able to go into a mode chart like this and immediately kind of form a hierarchy where 1, 3, and 6 are all part of one team, okay? That's the home team. Everything else is part of the away team, all right? It's going to help you a ton when it comes to improvisation, songwriting, sight reading, boy, everything, composition. Anyway, so that's it. That's why modes matter. They matter because you can make songs out of them, and you can get to know them in terms of a greater hierarchy, how the chords within them relate to each other, and really form huge, vast landscapes of music. It's not just a static piece like this. That can become anything you want. That was a full tune. Sounded a little bit like Canon in D, except I was in C major. And that's a whole landscape moving from either home chords to away chords and back and forth. More on this in a little bit because we have to start looking at music to really, really fully understand why modes matter. But again, this is just the start. We'll go from here.